Greetings to the brothers. This is Waymon Brown, the creator of the EsquireProject.com, a website devoted to helping the self-enterprising black man to eliminate barriers to personal achievement. I'd like to welcome you to another video. Go ahead and check out the links in the description. Be sure to touch base with me, and as always, feel free to leave your comments. I appreciate all of your support in advance. And let's get into this next topic. This video is actually going to be a second part to a video that I made several months back entitled The Detriment of Dating Single Mothers for Childless Black Men. Now, in my original video, I gave a synopsis of many of the psychological dangers that are often faced by men with no children who get romantically involved with women who are single mothers, particularly when the father of that child or the fathers of those children are well within that woman's life in some capacity, usually meaning what might be considered these days a generic term for co-parenting. In that video, we went through very realistic and common situations that often occur that leaves the childless black man picking up his face after going through an emotional whirlwind with the single mother, through illustrating things that are very much so common that take place in those types of situations. Now, in this particular video, I actually wanted to dig into some more specific instances of lifestyle hazards to the childless black man to consider when dealing with a single mother. Now, here it is. You've worked very hard throughout your life to keep yourself on an overall solid path, including making sure that you're being responsible sexually by not bringing children into the world under undesirable circumstances. The first thing I want to ask you is, do you deserve better than basing any portion of your existence on another man's legacy? These scenes that you have in your head of getting along with the child's father, of showing him that he has nothing to be worried about and you being involved with his children, these pictures that are in your mind of carrying his child, dropping that child off to him, maybe when the mother is at work or not feeling well, and the two of you shaking hands man to man, being respectful to each other, while you return back to your home and take care of his child's mother. This peaceful relationship dynamic that you imagine in your head. Why? Why should any of that be a part of the tale of when you leave this earth? Could not that same respect and order that you want to have within this arrangement be assigned to you as a black man of self-investment who completely runs the show due to making sacrifices to being a spectacular version of yourself? Could not this be done with your own legacy? Why does this woman deserve that goodness within you? Are you not robbing a woman in the future that you could actually mold into something from getting the best parts of you? Could this not be similar to how it is when a female gives her youth and her best years to men who ain't worth a damn, instead of saving herself for the right man? And now you might think, well, it's different because I can shake off my bad experiences. But guess what? You still take a part of those experiences with you throughout your life, which in turn robs your future relationship or relationships that you might have from different levels of progress. Even further, you could even be robbing the future children that will come from you. Because before they came on this earth, you've already decided to use much of your energy, much of your patience, much of your commitment, and much of your love to the outcomes of another man's seed. A man who is not your brother, or one that you would consider to be like a brother. In which case, that child's upbringing, even if you were impelled to see after it, it would be completely independent of dealing with the mother of that child in any sort of a romantic way. It would be based on principle, where your heart is not even wrapped up in it. Principle based on this man being someone that you care for deeply. Something done out of honor and respect. But instead, you've decided to get wrapped up in business in which you do not belong. And I know you might love kids, but if there's any portion of you being involved with a single mother that includes embracing the idea of being a positive influence to a child, then you will be much better off volunteering as a big brother, much better off helping out at a daycare a couple times a month, much better off investing into your little cousins, your little nieces and your nephews and your own family. You got plenty of work right there in the interim of assessing to have or not to have my own children one day. And you can do these things without getting emotionally involved with these women. So one of the big issues is in realizing that you actually deserve a much better situation than this. Now, of course, brothers, your decision is yours to make. And I'm one of those types of people that I might talk about certain things as far as my own take on it. But I don't ever want to be someone who tells you what to do. You take this information and you do with it as you see fit for your own life. As of course you're responsible for yourself as your own man. But I'm also a person who believes in giving you a framework to think within. And the framework here would be that hopefully you make a decision that puts you in the best situation to maintain your self-respect and the wise use of your time, energy, and other resources. But let me get into a few things in this video that I want to address further in continuation of our initial discussion. And that is in how dating a single mother can actually corrupt your judgment, how it destroys opportunities for brotherhood, and can deteriorate your quality of life. Now, when you're involved with a woman who's a single mother, much more often than not, this woman will speak very disparagingly about her child's father. And she does this for two main reasons. The first is that she wants to make you comfortable. And the way that she makes you comfortable is by trying to paint into your mind the idea that there's nothing going on between her and the father or the fathers of her child or children, and that she has absolutely no interest in him or in them. And this idea of her absolute disinterest is what makes you believe that you can build with this woman. She does this by painting a picture of the father of her child as being a devil, just to make you feel secure about the relationship of you and her. Now, of course, as we discussed in the first video, this picture of this emotional detachment that she's trying to get into your mind, even this disinterest romantically, is very rare, if ever, when it comes to a single mother, particularly when that child is still very small. Notice the imbalance on her part, as you probably have never really heard much about anything she actually did within that relationship that caused it to fail. And of course, she puts all the blame on him because she wants you to believe that he doesn't stand a chance anymore. She has all of these different complaints, and yet she stayed with him for all those months, or many times year after year, didn't she? Now, the second reason that she speaks very poorly about this man is that she does not want to accept personal responsibility for her actions and whom she decided to mate with. And she also wants to gain empathy from you. And when you exhibit that empathy, it makes you a direct participant in the current diseased matriarchal construct that exists specifically in Black America, which ultimately keeps a woman in a position of power, primarily because she's always excused and never totally responsible, or even partly responsible, for any single decision that she makes in life. Now, in my own personal experience, where there was a deep emotional involvement with a single mother, everything that she ever told me about the father or the fathers of her children that was negative, I believed it. Perhaps you've been in this type of situation as well. She would give you example after example of all of his deeds and his ways that were vicious to her or vicious to the child. But as mentioned, very rarely, if ever, will she actually tell you anything that she did wrong. And if you really think about it, think back to all the women that you may have dealt with that have been single mothers, right? In combination, whether it was 2 women, 4 women, however many, even if it's just one, just in principle, think about this. You could probably count on one hand anything positive that all those women combined have said about their fathers or the fathers of their children. You could probably really count on one hand anything good they ever had to say about these men, can't you? In combination. But yet, you probably can't even remember the countless bad descriptions and bad stories about him. Stories that you began to internalize because of your liking of her and perhaps your love for her. And of course, due to your emotions being involved, you accept those stories. You accept them blindly, even though she hasn't substantiated anything. So of course you're getting half the story. Now think about this. Can we truly be men of sound mind if we believe what a woman tells us about another man's character simply because of our connection with her when we have no facts? Will we not view it as an injustice if, let's say, we were in a car accident with another driver and the police report is made, and of course the insurance company becomes aware of what took place, and both the police and the insurance company only gets to hear the side of the story of the other driver that is not us, and this other driver makes themselves look like they are a complete victim, when in fact, if we were to actually look at things further, not only may the circumstance have been that they were 50-50 at fault, but sometimes vastly at fault for the accident. Would that really be fair? And yeah, think about all these different complaints that she's made about this man. All these negative things that she has to say. This is the same man that she spread her legs to. The same man that she called herself being in love with, and the same man that she let bust countless raw nuts in her. And somehow she never noticed any of these unfavorable traits before she got pregnant. Now, the impact that this has on you in hearing her harsh take on this man or on these men whom she's procreated with is that you begin to really dislike these men, don't you? Nah, let me take that back. Let's be realistic. You hate these men. And you don't know anything about these men. It might even be very realistic to say that you could have been involved with her for a year or more and you've never even met this man. But you hate this black man, don't you? A man that you may have actually found yourself forming a brotherhood with, had the two of you become acquainted with under different circumstances. A man that you may have even found yourself participating in a group discussion with, let's say here or within a YouTube space, about discussions just like this. A man who may have made some content that you would have otherwise benefited from, that literally could have helped save your life. A man who may have actually been a great person to network with and to work on building some sort of community with. But of course you hate him now because of her. And in our first video, we touched on how the childless black man is often used as a scapegoat to make the child's father jealous, so that the mother can show that she can move on to another man, a better man than him. Well, guess what? The father of this child may also be being used by this same woman that you love so much in some capacity to cover over her transgressions, to cover over her poor decision making on whom she's decided to mate with, or perhaps even to cover over the fact that she was partly or largely responsible for the whole family being messed up. Because of course she didn't step out on him until he stepped out on her, right? She didn't do anything wrong in a relationship. And if she did, of course, he did something first, right? That justified it. And now that you hate this man, guess what? He hates you too. Another man whom you've had little if any interaction with, you both hate each other because of one person in common. Notice how two enemies are now created due to one person, but for very different reasons. Your hatred of him due to tales of his mistreatment by her, and the fact that you might even be a bit jealous that he planted his stamp or placed his stamp on her womb before you did. That he's got something special on her that you can never have. And perhaps his hatred of you simply because you're the person that she's moved on with. That's true chaos. And this chaos spills out into other areas of life as well, where now his friends hate you too. And now you got to watch your back everywhere you go because you've now inherited drama because of her. The chaos keeps on spilling out into other areas, such as when she feels down because of an argument with him. And now you got to feel down because of it too. Now you got a bad day. Not because of her own problems that you would ordinarily want to help your lady with. Now you got a bad week. Not because of issues that you and her are going through, but because of her forever dealings with another man. But guess what? She never really told you that she had a soft spot for him, did she? So now when something bad happens to him, let's say she gets a call in the middle of the night. Maybe he got locked up. And she's boo-hooing. Maybe he got into a car accident. Maybe he had a death in the family. And after all this shit she was talking about, how she really doesn't care anything about him outside of him being there for his child, you will see a completely different side of emotion from this woman when the true nature of their relationship comes out. So now you get a chance to go along for this roller coaster ride with her over another man. And this is why I said in the first video that if you're going to be with her, then you might as well love him too. And I gave the illustration of how putting yourself in this sort of a predicament where you get relegated to this woman's lifestyle involving her and the father of her child, then it puts you in the position of being her emotional tampon and her emotional cuckold. And as a man of self-investment, think about this. Think about some of the lifestyle restrictions that it puts on you. Now, we as self-enterprising men know, especially as we'll get into other videos, of how important it is to establish ourselves financially and to be able to create opportunities for ourselves within the marketplace. But just think if there's another opportunity that may come your way. Maybe you've got a job now or you're operating a business now, but you've got a opportunity to go get another bag in another city. Perhaps double, triple, or even much more larger than that. Just sitting there waiting for you, but not so fast. Because first, especially if you're very seriously involved with her, you got to make sure that that's going to be able to work out with the co-parenting arrangement that she has with another man. So now the financial, the social, and the civic opportunities that could have been yours for the taking. Something that could have dramatically changed the outcome of a loved one. Let's say an opportunity perhaps to retire your mom if you wanted to do something like that. Or to help out your dad who might have some future hospital bills. Or to do something else. Something like making sure that the future offspring that will come from you could have a trust fund or something along those lines to help ensure their financial stability. That all comes to a halt. Because your purpose now is based upon her and that man's decision. But we think this is acceptable, don't we? As a community of men at large. The reproach that we should have, the reproach that we should feel because of deciding to put ourselves in situations like this as men of self-investment. Is this really appropriate for a man who's trying to create the best circumstances in life for himself as possible? You know, a lot of the movies and TV shows that are out right now, a lot of them touch on very dramatic occurrences in the world. You know, a lot of kind of post-apocalyptic living and just, you know, real crazy situations that come about. Most of them, of course, being fictitious in terms of things that are even possible. But nevertheless, they also give you a lot to think about because it gives you some sort of look into the human psyche. And I think that the overall basis of these shows and everything like that is just about the things people do in order to survive. But we don't even have to really think about a show. Think about how realistic it is to actually find ourselves in a situation where there is some sort of a natural disaster. That's very close to home, especially depending on what part of the region that we live in. Now imagine that you've been with a woman who has a child for the last couple of years. And of course, by now, you've built a life with her. Likely built a life around her life. Her child or her children is like your child or like your children. You've made a ton of lifestyle adjustments to make it all work out between you and her. You put a lot of effort into making this whole thing work, figuring because of this connection that you have, this seemingly this soulmate sort of a tie. Because you love her so much and you wanted to just be with her so much, you've made a number of different sacrifices. Now imagine that a very serious disaster takes place that's affecting basically everybody. Let's say in the United States, where there's really something serious going on, where every state is in a state of emergency. Leaving people without many utilities that they rely on for several months at a time. A lot of people by the day, they're trying to figure out how they're going to get clean water to drink, how they'll stay warm, or how long these canned goods will be able to last. And you're with this woman and her child. Of course, now you're a family. And you're just trying to preserve life like everyone else is. And you turn on the news and you get these reports that there's things going on all over the place where the national and the local governments are trying to get a grip on things. The military forces are involved and other personnel working around the clock trying to find a solution to help keep things at bay and get everything back to normal. You know, one afternoon, you and this woman and her child, you leave your house, or what's left of it. No lights, maybe intermittent running water, and an ever decreasing food supply. Medical care nearly non-existent. If there was ever a time to play doctor, is now. And by the day you look at each other, as you sit by a candlelight, and you don't know if this is going to be the last day that you'll see each other, but you're holding on. And nobody's really talked to anyone in their families who aren't already grouped with them within their household, because the internet services and the phone services are off. People can't communicate. People don't really have transportation to get around. Fuel supply is low. You're pretty much just trying to make it. And then on this particular day that you leave out, you run into the father of her child. He's in horrible shape, just like everybody else walking around. Horrible shape meaning hasn't bathed properly in weeks, looks famished. And you're all standing right there in one spot. She's carrying her child in her arms. And you look at her. And you look deeply into her eyes, and you can see right there, without her saying a word, how she really feels. And she's presented with two options. She can either stay on this journey of survival with you, or she can go with him. As the young child reaches out to daddy. Who do you think she has a moral obligation to in this situation? Who do you think will win? Which one is more important? The preservation of an emotional, romantic relationship, or the preservation of ensuring the best possible situation of a biological legacy created by two parents? My brothers, keep your mind strong. I'm out.